The Wacky Misadventures of Warble. Clay Shannon. The Wacky Misadventures of Warble McGorkle. Blackbird Crow Raven. This work copyright 2002 to 2007, 2021, 2025. Blackbird Crow Raven. B. Clay Shannon. Intro and 0th chapter. Notice. Anyone trying to find logic in this tome will be mercilessly teased. Anyone looking for hidden meanings in this book will be banished to an asylum. Anyone searching for sense and/or sensibility in this novel will be suspended by their left ankle until they cry, "Uncle." Disclaimer. No poodles were maimed, much less flattened, during the extensive research carried out in preparation for this scholarly work. Additionally, no puppies were kicked, no old ladies were tripped, no geese were anesthetized and diapered, and no short-timers were terminated. Reverse osmosis is not mentioned once in this entire book. Chapter 0. Growing nervous due to the lateness of the hour and not having heard any sounds emanating from the room, the Secret Service agents rap on the door of the presidential suite. No answer. They wait a few seconds and knock again, louder this time. Still no answer. "Mr. President," the lead agent yells, his ear to the door. Even still, there is no answer. The two agents look at each other, silently agree on the necessary course of action, and take 3 steps back. Counting down together, 3, 2, 1, they rush to the door, battering it down with their iron-pumped shoulders. Bursting into the room, they call out again for the president. As before, there is no reply. While one agent looks under the bed, the other inspects the bathroom. No one is there. "Sound the alarm," the lead agent barks, and his partner runs out to the hallway and flips the switch. The pair then rush into the Oval Office. But the president is not there either. They do discover an unusual sight, though. A video camera is set up in the middle of the room, aimed at the president's favorite chair. On the stand next to the chair sits an empty beer bottle and a plate with nothing but cookie crumbs on it. Chapter 1. "This purports to be a muffin," Warble says, as he trains his video camera at the object on his plate. "You know, these fancy schmancy, high-tone restaurants have been known to trick people by reverse engineering all types of foods and then introducing them in stealth varieties, decked out to look like something else altogether. Take this so-called muffin, for instance. How do we know it's not really a bagel, or a donut, or even a filet mignon?" Warble's wife Mary looks at him wearily, slowly, and ever so slightly, shaking her head from side to side. It isn't palsy that causes this rocking of her cranium. It is a mixture of exasperation and resignation that Warble, even on this special occasion at this gourmet restaurant attached to Bayfield, Wisconsin's renowned Rittenhouse Inn, won't let up on his wild theorizing. Warble sees conspiracies in everything, from the birds flying south in the winter to the Yankees winning the World Series. Warble claims the migration of the winged creatures to the south causes the worm population in the areas they had abandoned to multiply exponentially, which eventually leads to worms eating all the vegetation in the north, which leads naturally to the inhabitants of the Northland pulling up stakes and moving south with a decided Yankeeization of Southern culture, which for some reason known only to Warble, is a plot perpetrated by the federal government. As for the Yankees winning the World Series, Warble feels that the feds consider it better for America in the long run that baseball be displaced by football in the hearts and minds of sports fans. For that reason, government infiltrators, agent provocateurs, have not only been busy on the inside manipulating both sides to provoke labor disagreements, resulting in strikes and lockouts, but also in ensuring that the Yankees, meaning not just the New York Yankees, but all northern teams, win an inordinate number of the World Series matchups. This sameness leads to boredom, resulting in fan abandonment of baseball for a less predictable sport, football. And becoming football fans leads to the aggressivization, as Warble puts it, of the American male, which is, he claims, precisely the intention of the Washington crowd. Warble continues with his diatribe. "Yes, I think they pulled the old bait and switch on me, Mary. This muffin, as they would have us think it is in actuality no doubt a filet mignon that has been prepared so as to resemble a muffin in contour and aroma. Indubitably, it has been cooked rare. in the hopes that I will contract some disease from the uncooked meat and die a horrible, agonizing death. Then they can steal into our room while you're away attending to the funeral arrangements and steal all my stuff. Once they abscond with all of our worldly goods, they will search through them until they find my notes, and then, having the wherewithal and connections needed to bring all my ideas to fruition, will amass a fortune so huge they will be able to afford to feed everyone here in Bayfield every day of the year, every year from here into eternity, free of charge. And they would do it too, not out of the goodness of their hearts, oh no, but for the PR value. What a coup! It is a rather ingenious idea. I must give them that at least. While robbing valiant men like me of their treasures, the blood, sweat, and tears-won ideas wrested from the writhing depths of their tortured souls, they put on a pretense of being philanthropic, and no judge or jury in the land would ever find them guilty of anything. Mary defiantly picks up her muffin and bites into it. Warble records this foolish and daring act through the video camera lens. Without taking his eye from the viewfinder, he continues to provide commentary on the gastronomic scene he is recording. "It tastes like a muffin to me," Mary says, gazing directly into the camera with a challenging and even downright surly expression. She gives the camera a swift slap. "Would you put that thing down, Warble? You're causing a scene." It is true that several of the other guests are absorbed in the goings-on at the McGorkle table. Some are attempting to appear oblivious to Warble's ramblings, but are, nevertheless, watching the McGorkles out of the corners of their eyes and whispering to each other while furtively gesturing toward the man who is videotaping his breakfast. Others are openly gawking. A man breakfasting alone has completely forgotten his food and has turned his chair to face the action. He is grinning broadly, seemingly lost in reverie. "Well, of course, yours really is a muffin. It's me they have a motive to kill. Remember, not you," Warble says to Mary as he raises the video camera above his plate. "And do you see that so-called glass of water there? That indubitably is a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon, but not just your ordinary garden variety Cabernet. Oh no, it is the same exact variety of varietal served to the political dissenters in Spain that induces them to lose their sanity and commit suicide by running out into the paths of raging bulls. If I drink that water and commit harakiri, my enemies are saved the trouble of eliminating me themselves. And when the police come to investigate our room, these rapscallions will easily bribe the peace officers with a lifetime supply of jelly-filled donuts to snatch away the meticulous and detailed notes I have taken for all of my upcoming wonderful and ingenious inventions." Mary thrusts out her hand as a frog does its tongue to capture a fly, making a grab for Warble's muffin. She wants to take a bite of it to prove once and for all that it is just a normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill muffin and put an end to all this tomfoolery. Warble is too quick for her, though. He grabs the tips of her fingers just as she is about to retract the baked good to her mouth. Mary then tries to grab the muffin with her other hand, but Warble encompasses the whole thing with his hand and crushes it, the muffin, not her hand. Mary angrily yanks her hand loose, and in so doing, the crumbled to smithereens muffin flies in what seems like millions of tiny globules all over the Rittenhouse Inn's ornate carpet. At this turn of events, the solitary breakfaster guffaws, and the other onlookers gasp. As the server, unable to ignore the untoward proceedings any longer, approaches, Warble turns and addresses him in all gravity. "My good man," he says in his best stuffy British accent, not to be confused with the rough and tumble Cockney accent preferred by coal miners and the like. "My wife seems to be quite fond of your muffins. Would you kindly bring her another one of her kind of muffins?" When Warble says her, he arches an eyebrow to further emphasize the implication. The server opts to ignore the provocation and simply responds, "Certainly, sir. And which type do you prefer, ma'am?" He continues, turning to Mary. "The apple cranberry or the banana nut?" Mary buries her head in her hands but spreads her fingers just far enough apart to peep through them and glares out at Warble. Without looking at the server, she replies, "The apple cranberry, please." As the server turns away, Warble grabs him by the arm. "Remember, one of her types of muffin, not one of my muffins." Again the arched eyebrow. The server assures Warble that he knows exactly what to do. Warble returns again to his theme. Places like this are always pulling shenanigans on people like me. An innocent-looking muffin becomes a death-dealing slab of putrefied meat. A glass of pure, wholesome, unadulterated H2O gets swapped out with a potion of poisoned fruit of the vine. An idea, a brainstorm he would term it, occurs to Warble. He leans and whispers into his wife's ear. If I can record a testimony that this food and drink is untainted, we will have them cornered, my dear. He is about to continue explaining his plan when he notices the server approaching their table and holds his tongue. Not literally, he just stops whispering. Warble quickly straightens up and fixes the server in the camera's viewfinder. In a tone of warning, Warble asks him, "Will you swear on a stack of pancakes that this," he points down with his free hand to the second, unmolested muffin on his plate, "is in reality a muffin and nothing but a muffin, so help you God?" The server is at a loss as to how to respond to this bizarre interrogation. He looks around to locate the restaurant manager, hoping he will notice his awkward predicament and come to his aid. The manager is observing the unusual goings-on from around the corner. When the server and manager establish eye contact, though, the manager just shrugs, as if to say, "You deal with it. It'll be good practice for you." Chapter 2. The server finally turns to Warble and responds in a neutral voice, "Yes, sir, that most certainly is a muffin." He wants to say, "What else would it be? What does it look like? What does it smell like? If it smells like a muffin, looks like a muffin, tastes like a muffin, crumbles like a muffin." Warble interrupts the server's contemplations. "Okay then, if you really believe that, I'd like to see you give it the old taste test." Warble scoops up the muffin in his free hand and proffers it to the server, practically cramming the muffin into the server's mouth. After a stunned silence, the man replies, "Sir, that is your muffin. Besides, I am not allowed to eat in front of the guests. If you would like, I will gladly replace that muffin with another." "Another what?" Warble practically shrieks, half rising up out of his chair. "See? You didn't say another muffin. You just said another, because you have no intention of bringing me a muffin at all, and you are not willing to sample my muffin, because you know. You are in on it, sir. Yes, you are. Before you committed the faux pas of not specifying precisely what it was you intended to bring me from the kitchen, you even said your muffin. You said, and I quote, 'That is your muffin,' knowing full well that my muffin is decidedly and distinctly different from all the other muffins being served at this establishment this morning. Without a shadow of a doubt, I've caught you red-handed. My muffin. And you refuse to taste it, and you decline to swear on a stack of pancakes." Just as the manager approaches the table, with the intention of removing the McGorkles with as little fuss as possible, Warble stands up, flapping his burgundy-colored napkin in melodramatic fashion. "Come, my dear," he tells his wife. "We don't have to remain here to be put upon by these dastardly would-be poisoners and thieves." Mary resignedly gets up, sighing, and grabs her purse. Eyes cast down, she follows her husband out the door and onto the street. "Did I foil them, or what?" Warble rejoices as they walk away from the dreaded establishment. "That will teach them to try to pull the wool over old Warble's peepers." Mary says nothing and tries to change the subject in her mind as she and Warble head toward the boat landing. Chapter 3. After the short stroll to the wharf, Warble and Mary are about to board the ferry that will take them across Lake Superior to Madeline Island. Walking on the pier, deep in thought, Warble all of a sudden stops dead in his tracks, as if his shoes have been superglued to the wharf. He allows Mary to continue walking until he thinks she is out of earshot. He then switches the video camera back on and pans the horizon. He records boats, quaint homes perched on the hillsides above town, punctuated now and then by the odd mansion here or there, the massive lake, and the islands visible from the dock. In a subdued voice, Warble begins narrating the scene. Mary has been shanghaied and placed on a slave ship bound for some sweatshop somewhere in the interior of China, that vast and inscrutable country where she will work 17 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the approximate equivalent of around 12.5 cents per hour. Of course, they will deduct room and board from her paltry wages, and she will end up with absolutely nothing for her toil and trouble. She will owe her soul to the company store, as the old Kentucky Burt Chevy song says. Her only form of respite and recreation, her only escape from the tedium, will be the odd cricket fight. Actually, I could refer to them as the odd. Cricket fight because they will not only be odd, as in occurring only occasionally here and there, but also odd, as in strange. If one or more of the participating crickets is him or herself odd to boot, one could even term these contests an odd cricket fight. And if 3 crickets were involved instead of the customary 2, for example, if the fight promoters were to pit the LeBron James of crickets against a pair more closely resembling that Indian guy Stephen Curry and the old jar heir Steve Kerr, they could call it the odd cricket fight. As an odd number, 3 of crickets would be involved in the feat of strength, endurance, cunning, and all that rot. That would be really odd. But enough of that. So who is this walking ahead of me, you ask? It is either a robot, built to look somewhat like Mary. After all, they didn't do that good a job. It doesn't look exactly like her. Or an actress working on a pro bono basis. Once they get my stash of ideas, they will cash in and live like royalty for the rest of their born days. Warble squints at Mary, trying to ascertain who it really is, exactly. That is masquerading as his wife. Somewhat to his consternation, she has been able to hear his running commentary and confronts him about it. "Don't give me that malarkey," Warble replies as she protests against his suppositions. "Those robot makers or makeup artists will have to get up a little earlier in the morning than what they did to get the better of me. You," he jabs his index finger at her, "aren't Mary, and you know it. You resemble Mary to a certain extent, but a half-crazed, blind in one eye, duck-billed platypus would know you're not really her." Warble cocks his head, squints at Mary, and says, "I think you're either Meryl Streep, wearing makeup, or Helen Hunt without." "Oh, Warble," Mary sighs, exasperated. "Aha! I've got you now, you wannabe silver-tongued devilette. Mary never calls me Warble, she calls me Sugar Pie Honey Bunch," Warble retorts. "I do not," Mary replies incredulously. Warble glares at her, and then frowns, shrugging his shoulders. "All right, she doesn't. Apparently they briefed you well. I was trying to trap you, and I must admit that this time I failed. But I will find a way, this I promise you, Ms. Streep or Hunt or whatever your name is," Warble threatens, wagging his finger in her face. "I will secure my belongings. You will have gone to all this trouble for nothing, and I will recapture and reclaim my rightful spouse from the clutches of your diabolical organization." Mary spins around and stalks up the plank and onto the ferry. Warble follows at a distance, keeping a suspicious eye on her every move. Chapter 4. On the ride over to the island, Warble watches Mary from the corner of his eye as he pretends to be absorbed in reading a newspaper. He has taken a seat across from her so that he can monitor her from a distance while he tries to puzzle out who she really is and whether she is an actress or an automaton. After disembarking on Madeline Island, Warble gives Mary the slip. He wants to spy on her from a distance and see what she will do when he isn't at her side, monitoring her every move. Warble is thinking that Mary will probably telephone her employer or mad scientist inventor to report on how things are going. After a few minutes of looking around for her husband, who is hiding behind a dumpster 100 yards from the dock, Mary does make a beeline for a telephone booth. After she enters the number and turns her back to Warble, he emerges from his place of concealment and rapidly approaches her, speed walking, but keeping his upper body as low to the ground as he can. Just as she begins the telephone conversation, Mary turns halfway around and spots Warble coming toward her, arms pumping frenetically and head down to the ground. When he reaches the telephone booth, Warble looks up and sees his wife glaring down at him. Her eyes blaze as she whirls around, hangs up the phone, and flings open the phone booth door. "Warble, will you cut out this nonsense? You're ruining our anniversary trip," Mary complains. "That's where you're wrong, Meryl, Helen, C3, P. Oetta, or whatever your name is. Warble P. McGorkle has no time for this monkey business, and you are the one who's ruined our anniversary trip." Mary's in mind, that is. "Now I want you to tell me what you've done with my wife. If you've hurt her in any way," Warble threatens, wagging his finger in her face. This has gone far enough, Mary interrupts. Too far, in fact. You've really gone too far this time, Warble. Now look, I can prove to you that I am your wife. Warble straightens up, slowly exhales, and smirks. With an air of impending victory, he slowly folds his arms across his chest. All right then, prove it. He is certain that she, or it, will not be able to. Not in a million years. Think about it, Warble, Mary says. What is something that only you and I know? Something that no imposter could possibly know. Warble is puzzled. He doesn't know what Mary could be driving at. Putting his hand to the side of his face, Warble taps his temples several times with his index finger, imploring himself in a hushed tone. Think, think, think. What could it be that an imposter would think was only known by he and his wife, but which could actually be known by someone else? After 3.14 seconds of vigorous mental exertion, Warble gives up. I don't believe you know anything that could prove to me that you are the real Mary, Warble says, but I'll make a deal with you. If you can prove to me beyond the shadow of a doubt that you are my wife Mary and not Meryl Streep, Helen Hunt, or some other actress, or an automaton, fine. If not, though, you must tell me where Mary is. Warble, I am Mary, so I do know where she is. I do know where I am. Warble's eyes narrow. Mary's initial reference to herself as she instead of I had not gone unnoticed by him. He lets it go, though, because he thinks he has her right where he wants her now. But if you're not Mary, which I don't think you are, then you also know where she is, or you know someone who knows. So the deal is, if you don't prove that you're Mary, you tell me where she is, or find out where she is. Deal? Mary agrees and they shake hands on it. So, lay it on me. Give it your best shot. What do you supposedly know that only Mary and I would know? You always put on your left sock inside out. Warble is dumbfounded, which doesn't really mean that he is found to be dumb, in the sense of being utterly lacking in intelligence, but rather that he is speechless. That blessed state is, alas, only a temporary one. Then there's only one logical conclusion. You've been cloned. Mary rolls her eyes. Warble, what would be the purpose of that? If I had been cloned, an exact replica of me had been produced, complete with every last shred of memory. How would that serve the cause of any conspirators? The clone would act in exactly the same way as the real Mary. Me. You've got a point there, Warble answers, rubbing his chin. Nevertheless, I refuse to wear a hat, Mary responds, beating Warble to the punch. Line. Warble grabs Mary, pulls her close, and puts his mouth against her ear. Don't look now, he whispers, but I think we're being watched. I saw that old lady across the street looking at us. What do you expect, Warble? Wouldn't you look at us if you were her? There's no way of knowing that. I've never been her, and I doubt very much that I ever will be. Look, in case we get separated somehow, let's synchronize our watches. Warble keeps one eye on the old lady across the street, who, as he sees it, is now feigning a lack of interest in them, and with the other eye checks the time on his watch. It is exactly 9:42 a.m. Central Time. Are you synchronized? Mary pretends to set her watch to Warble time. Hers reads 9:43, but she doesn't think a minute here or there will make any difference. Chapter 5. All right then, Mary, here's what we've got to do. They're obviously after us. We've got to give them the slip, and pronto. What do you mean? Who is after us? Whoever it is that wants to purloin my ingenious notes. They are ruthless and desperate, and will stop at nothing in order to cash in on the fame and fortune, the glory and gain that is rightfully mine. Mary gives Warble a look as if she has just taken a bite of rancid lima beans. Warble, wouldn't they just buy you out if they were that interested in your ideas? That's exactly what they want us to think, Mary, Warble answers, poking his index finger into the air, to get us off our guard. But why would they pay me the millions I would demand, which would be cheap at twice the price, nay 10,000-fold the price, when they can eliminate me and then pilfer my amazingly complex and yet simple inventions, without nearly as much monetary outlay? No, my dear, mark my words and heed my admonition. Their intentions toward us are not at all honorable. They mean to kill us, and that is mean. Warble, Mary warily asks, what are you planning to do? She knows it will be something unpleasant, or at least unsettling, unnerving, and inconvenient. They expect us to stay here and enjoy ourselves for 3 more days. But we will not. Enjoy ourselves. Stay here, Warble answers, dismissing her barb with an impatient wave of the hand. It's a trap. They expect to be able to keep their eyes on us here, or back home in Oconomowoc. We will have to go into hiding. Oh, Warble, do we have to? Mary whines, exasperated. Her begonias will die if she leaves them unattended. Yes, I'm afraid so, my dear. It's a matter of life and death. Are you sure? What if all they want to do is just beat you to a pulp within an inch or so of your life? Maybe we could stay. Mary is distraught enough that she almost means it. Impossible, my dear. If such were the case, fine. But I know this sort, and they will stop at nothing. This beating to a pulp within an inch or so of life business is too tame for them. They want closure. Every time. They're closure fanatics, I tell you. But how do you know, Warble? Mary pleads. How do you know that they're out to get you and your ideas? Warble gently grabs his wife's shoulders and peers deeply into her eyes. Mary, have you ever known me to be wrong? He challenges. Mary doesn't know where to begin. There have been so many times, she thinks. She also knows it is best to be a little circumspect and not be over hasty in providing an example. Well, she says, and then hesitates, pretending to be having a difficult time remembering a specific instance. What about the time you thought that golf was a Scottish plot for world domination? Note, for the edification of the reader, Mary is referring to the following article, which Warble had written for the local newspaper. The Oconomowoc News Service edition, 7209. Wednesday, 25th of July, 2001. Circulation, 157,122. Breaking story, Warble McGorkle, Oconomowoc correspondent. Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, U.S.A. Glasgow Herald, 24th July. King admits golf hoax. In an announcement that has stunned the world, Angus MacAtack, King of Scotland, admitted that golf is an elaborate hoax that his country originated in order to achieve world domination. A hoax that has been kept alive for hundreds of years. Speaking at a recent meeting of the UN, MacAtack revealed the following. 4 years ago, or so, our forefathers plotted eventual world domination through the dissemination of the activity which some in error refer to as a sport. Golf was invented in order to gradually bring into subjugation all other nations of the earth. Our intrigue has been very successful, formerly productive. Farmland has been replaced by golf courses in community after community. Water needed for basic necessities has been squandered in keeping these courses green, and the courses themselves present dangers to livestock in the event people were to try to reverse the diabolical trend and turn the golf courses back into grazing land. This danger is caused by the holes, which are strategically placed as booby traps for the unsuspecting animals, most especially bovines and such. Unaware of the presence of these holes, which resemble those inhabited by prairie dogs, said livestock step into them and break their legs, which results in their untimely demise. The ultimate result is that the food supply of golfing nations is disrupted, and its peoples suffer hardship, malnutrition, and even starvation. Engaging in golf instead of more traditional sports such as football, basketball, baseball, tennis, and even dodgeball has also led to the gradual disintegration of the general health of entire populations throughout the earth. Moreover, added the king with a grin, it is not a coincidence that the word golf is flog spelled backward. Our stratagem has actually been too successful, the king lamented. It has gone far enough. The world's supplies of rye are now being affected. To think that modern, sophisticated peoples would flock to such an activity in ever-increasing numbers is almost inconceivable anyway. The fault is not completely ours. The subscribed clothing alone should have been enough to make it clear to anyone with half a brain that the whole matter was a joke. Doesn't anybody pay attention to what people in Scotland themselves do? Nobody in Scotland ever played golf. Nevertheless, we feel really guilty about the chaos, confusion, and truly ugly clothing styles that have resulted from our misguided megalomaniacal deeds of so long ago. Major golfers and vendors, including Tiger Woods, Arnold Palmer, Lee Trevino, titleists Wilson and Spalding have refused comment at this time. Your humble correspondent stated that he had suspected this for a number of years and will bravely continue to expose other tricks foisted on a gullible public. In a related late-breaking story, usually reliable sources are stating that a similar confession may be forthcoming from Mia Hamm and Pelé concerning soccer. And hacky sack spokesmen have begun denying that their product is an internal prank gone awry. Now that this information has come to light, American author Mark Twain has been vindicated. Twain was one of the very few to see through Scotland's stratagem, noting perceptibly that golf is a good walk. Ruined. Glasgow Herald, 24th July, contributed by Warble McGorkle. Mary, Mary, Warble says with a tone of exasperation, haven't we discussed this before to your complete and utter satisfaction? As I told you, my theory has never been disproved. But Warble, it isn't true. And how do you know that it isn't? Can you prove it? No. And why can't you prove it? Because it is true. Warble, honey, can you prove that it is true? Mary asks as tactfully as possible. What? Warble asks incredulously. Why are you trying to twist things around, Mary? It was you who accused me of being wrong. The burden of proof is on you, the accuser. I don't have to prove a thing. The nerve to accuse me of being wrong and then demand proof that I am right. Ha! I'm not falling for that old barrister's trick. Mary sees that it is senseless to continue the struggle. All right then, Warble. What do you propose we do? As I said, Mary, we must go into seclusion. We need to lay low for a while, until the dust settles anyway. Goodbye, begonias. Hello, road trip, Mary tells herself. Life with Warble is seldom boring, but sometimes I wonder if I should have married Mike Rocossum, the slap-happy vacuum cleaner salesman. At least I could tend my begonias and not have to go traipsing all over creation, fleeing from who knows why. So what's your plan, Warble? What have you got up your sleeve? Chapter 6. I have a friend in Louisiana we can hole up with. H.R. Brooks, Warble turns and tells Mary with a grin as they travel south out of Bayfield. He keeps the speedometer of their Cranberry PT Cruiser pegged right at the speed limit to avoid giving the cops any reason to stop him. Warble knows that some law enforcement officers are easily bribed with visions of free lifetime supplies of donuts. Others, he feels, are frustrated inventors with sour grapes attitudes toward geniuses like himself, whose envy and jealousy could quite conceivably be manifested in a willingness to cooperate in a plot against him and his invaluable inventions. Louisiana? Where's that? Mary wonders. What? Warble asks, exasperated. Sometimes your lack of knowledge of fundamental geography baffles and confounds me, woman. Don't you know where Louisiana is? It's the home of Cajun and Creole cooking, the great relief pitcher, Mardi Gras, Dixieland Jazz, Zydeco, Doug Kershaw, the Neville Brothers, the Superdome, gangrene-colored. Oh, you mean Louisiana, Mary interjects. No, Dad burn it, woman. It's Louisiana. We've got to pronounce it the way the natives do. We must look like, talk like, and act like Southerners when we're down there. We don't want to raise any suspicions whatsoever. Just blend in with the crowd. Why do they pronounce it that way? Mary asks. It sounds ignorant. Ignorant? It's the proper way, actually. After all, the original spelling was capital L-O-U apostrophe S, new word, capital E-A-N-N-A. Who was this Lou fella? Mary inquires. Paul's brother? Wench, you're going to drive me to drinking if you don't stop. Wench? Mary interrupts. What's with this wench stuff? I told you, Mary, we have to fit in. When in the South, do as the rebels do. Isn't that what they say? It harkens back to the old pirate days when... Warble, Mary interrupts again. What? Who is this Lou guy? Mary demands. Don't you know anything about history, Mary? What did you do while you were in school? Write love letters to Johnny Mathis all day long? Come on, everybody knows that Lou is the Southerners' affectionate name for Louis Pasteur. Remember the Louisiana Purchase? We bought the region from the frog eaters for a pittance. The noble Southerners, realizing how they had gypped the Frenchies, decided to show their respects by naming the state after Monsieur Pasteur. It was a kind of consolation prize. Why didn't they name it after Bonaparte or Matisse or Chef Boyardee? Mary asks. Mary, I'm shocked at your ignorance, Warble says, shaking his head in disbelief. Chef Boyardee was an Italian. I was just joking, Warble, Mary mutters out of the side of her mouth, slapping Warble's knee. This is no laughing matter, Mary. There's a time and a place for everything, but this is neither the time. He glances at his watch, ignoring the one on the dashboard of their PT Cruiser, thinking it may have been hacked. Nor the place. Looking up at the sign along the highway, he makes a mental note that they are 17 miles from Minocqua. For mirth, Warble practically harumphs as he takes a renewed firm grip on the steering wheel and gazes at the road ahead with his best steely-eyed Clint Eastwood staring into the distance imitation. Anyway, Warble finally says after stewing in his own juices for several seconds, Louisiana was named after Louis Pasteur. I thought it was named after King Louis, Mary says softly. Are you kidding, Mary? That's an old wives' tale at best. Why would they name their state after a character from the Jungle Book? It's named after Louis Pasteur for proving that fruit flies don't like mason jars, thus opening up the moonshine business, which played a pivotal role in financing the Civil War. Not to mention, Warble, slow down. Why? Did you spot danger up ahead? Warble asks, his head on a swivel. No, there's a fruit stand up ahead. I want to stop and get some cherries. Warble expels a long, loud sigh. How can Mary think about puny, pitted produce at a time like this? Nevertheless, he pulls on to the dirt road leading to the roadside fruit stand. Warble thinks he smells a rat. Mary, I believe this fruit stand was erected here very recently, he says, suspiciously scanning the horizon. I don't remember it when we drove up yesterday. That's because you were asleep, Warble. I drove through this area. Nevertheless, do you remember it? Not specifically, but I wasn't looking for a fruit stand at the time. Aha, you see? It wasn't here yesterday. It was built overnight, and they put up that sign with cherries prominently displayed, knowing that you're a fool for fresh cherries and would beg me to stop. Chapter 7. Beg you to stop, Warble. I beg you to stop. You see, it worked, concludes Warble. They are quite clever, but we're not going to let them get the better of us. They want us to fork over some of our hard-earned cash, and then they'll be able to lift my fingerprints off the coins or bills I used to pay for your beloved cherries, transfer my prints to some other item, and then frame me for some heinous crime that will land me in the calaboose. You will be forced to sell them my inventions at a cut-rate price in order to pay the attorney's fees, and then you'll be left holding the bag. Of cherries? Good, that's what I want. Come on, let's go. Wait a minute, Mary, I have a plan, as usual. You will get your cherries, I promise you, but they will not get my fingerprints. That I also guarantee. Why did you say guarantee like that? It's the way they say it in Louisiana. Don't you ever watch public television? Anyway, this is what we're going to have to do. We're going to steal the cherries, and a watermelon too. All this talk about the South gives me a craving for watermelon. But that's dishonest, Warble. No, it's not. Remember, this is a trap. They probably stole all those produce items themselves. When I'm able to get the pseudo-fruit clerk to turn his head, grab a hunk of cherries and make a dash for the getaway car. What, our car? Do you see any other getaway cars around here, Mary? No. Then why did you ask? Anyway, don't worry about procuring the watermelon. I've got that covered. Mary looks at Warble skeptically but resignedly opens the passenger door and steps out. She knows where any argument with Warble will end, with her more confused than ever, and Warble getting his way. Thumbs in his pants pockets, Warble ambles up to the fruit stand, trying to look as nonchalant as possible. Howdy, he says, addressing the clerk. Afternoon, the man responds. Anything in particular I can help you with? Warble engages the man in small talk for a while, and then suddenly stiffens, opens his eyes wide, raises himself to his full height, which happens to be 5 feet 11.5 inches, and points off into the distance behind the fruit stand. Look, there's Elvis shaking hands with the hunchback of Notre Dame in the pumpkin patch, Warble yells out. Marvin, the fruit stand attendant, squints his eyes, jerks his head back in disbelief, and stares at Warble. But Warble continues staring and pointing, seemingly mesmerized by the goings-on in the field. Finally, Marvin is unable to resist the temptation any longer. After all, the customer may have seen something, a deer in his orchard, or who knows what. In the split second it takes Marvin to turn around and look, Warble scoops up the biggest and juiciest looking watermelon and stuffs it under his shirt. He wheels around to make his getaway, looking back toward Mary and urging her on. "Make haste, my dearest lover of stone fruit. Make a beeline for the chariot. Do not pass go, and do not collect any moss whatsoever." Mary overcomes her astonishment at Warble's audacity in stealing a watermelon in broad daylight, right under the nose of the friendly neighborhood fruit stand attendant, and takes to her heels. In fact, Mary beats Warble to the car because he has tripped over a skateboard some rotten teenager has left near the cranberries, falling flat on his face. Fortunately for Warble, the pilfered melon breaks his fall. Nevertheless, the watermelon sandwich that was bookended by terra firma at the bottom and Warble's belly at the top knocks the wind out of Warble's sails as he falls with a thud and an oof. A lady named Kit with a bouffant hairdo, who was packing a pink poodle, faints when she hears the watermelon burst and sees the reddish fluid emanating, or so it seems, from Warble's midsection. She sprawls backward, which turns out to be a serendipitous turn of events for her, as her prodigious backside breaks her fall quite nicely. Sadly, though, it is a tragic happenstance for her poor canine, named Caboodle, who had managed to squirm out of her grasp as she began to fall, but had inexplicably and perhaps inadvertently positioned himself right beneath his mistress's aforementioned derriere. There will be no joy in that burg when Kit comes to, for there is little or no market for sale poodles there. As Mary hears the pop and crack of the watermelon bursting and the rush of air being expelled from Warble's diaphragm, she whirls around. Warble is gasping for breath, but nevertheless crawling towards the car as fast as he can slither, which really isn't very fast at all, and certainly not fast enough to outpace Marvin, who has overcome his consternation over the bogus Elvis sighting and is rushing headlong toward Warble, bent on detaining the produce pilferer. Chapter 8. Mary flings open the back door of the car, scurries back to grab onto Warble's outstretched hand, and with nary a "how do you do," drags him with all her might and main across the dirt and gravel to the car. Warble stumbles to his feet as they reach the car, and Mary facilitates his entry into the back seat with a swift kick to his backside. Marvin is gaining ground. He is within a few dozen yards now. Mary runs around to the driver's side door, yanks it open, propels herself sideways onto the seat, cranks the engine, jams the car into first gear, and stamps on the gas pedal. Marvin has just reached the car. He makes a dive for the back seat, but as the car lunges forward, he, instead of diving into the back seat and tackling Warble as he had planned, slides across the trunk, falls off the far side and skids over the ground for a few feet, before flipping over and then coming to a halt in a heap. Marvin is not seriously hurt, but nevertheless immediately begins bellowing out for a medal. "I have gone above and beyond the call of duty. I'm not paid to apprehend desperados. I put my life on the line. I gave my all. I deserve a raise, demand a bonus, and apply herewith officially and unconditionally for a Purple Heart." Mary speeds out of the fruit stand parking lot, jerking the steering wheel violently to the right as she enters the highway. The right rear door, which had been standing open, slams shut, a microsecond after Warble had pulled his legs all the way into the car and under his chin. After Mary has stabilized the car and her respiration to some extent, she turns around to see if Warble is all right. He too has now regained his breath, but is still a little dazed. Lying on his side, he props himself up with his left elbow. "Good work, Mary. We made a clean getaway. I guess you noticed I experienced technical difficulties getting the watermelon back to the car? Do you mind if I have a few of your cherries?" "Help yourself, Warble," Mary responds and picks up a carton of the shiny red fruit and starts to hand them back to him. "Oh no, leave them where they are. I'm coming up." And so he does, by turning around and placing his back to the back of the front passenger seat so that he's facing out the rear window, and walking on the back seat and headliner so as to go over the seat backward. When his head comes down and touches the front seat, he twists his body around, using his head as a swivel, somewhat reminiscent of a breakdancer in slow motion, until he is sitting in the passenger seat in the normal fashion. "Now why did you do it that way?" Mary wants to know. Do what way, Mary? Warble counters. Mary sighs. Why did you climb over the seat backward? Backward? Do you mean literally backward or backward as in the opposite of the normal way? Both. Well, I did climb over backward in the literal sense, it's true, but I didn't climb over backward in the latter sense, despite what you think. All right, Warble, let me put it to you this way. Why didn't you climb over like a normal person? A normal person? What do you mean by that phrase, normal person? Mary, how would you define such an animal? And if you could identify someone that could be classified as normal, just how would he, or I guess you would say it would be a she, go about climbing over an automobile seat? I've been trying to tell you, forward, frontward, head first. She would use her arms to pull herself over head first. Ah, but you see, you said she. Maybe it's a woman thing. Women climb over forward, men backward. Thus, custom on Venus is to go head first. But the custom on Mars is, Deville take the hindmost. Deville? Cruella, you mean? No, not Cruella. Coup Deville. It's a car. We're talking about climbing around in a car, Mary, don't you? Warble. Realize dash dash. Warble. What I'm trying to, Warble, tell you dash dash. Warble. Warble, warble, warble. Enough with the warbling already. What? What? It's not a woman thing. It's a normal, everyday, average person thing. All right then. If you're so sure of it, then prove it. Okay, I will. Do you remember when you were a kid and you climbed over from the back seat to the front? I was never a kid, so I haven't the foggiest idea what you're driving at. You were never a kid? Most definitely not. I have never in my entire life been a goat. Oh, Warble, for crying out loud. When you were a child and you climbed over the seat, did you go over forward or backward? Forward. See? See nothing. I was a kid. It's a kid thing. I mean, a child thing. Children go over forward, adults backward. What makes you think that? Well, you just witnessed it. I went over backward, didn't I? Yes, you most certainly did. Have you seen any adults climb over forward? Mary sees that Warble has her dead to rights there. She hasn't seen any adults climb over either forward or backward, except for Warble. She throws her hands into the air, sighs, and shakes her head in exasperation. Warble thinks she is shaking her head no, though, and thus admitting that he is right. Warble doesn't rub it in, though. He lets silence reign for a few minutes, then says, "Once we get to Louisiana, call me Colonel, and talk real slow. As much as possible, add a syllable to words to draw them out. Warble, what on earth are you talking about? What sort of syllable exactly would you want me to add?" Warble turns in his seat to explain it to Mary. It depends on the word, based on the vowel you are elongating. For example, notice how I say, "Please pass the corn" in Southern. "Please pay us the corn." Notice that? 6 syllables for the price of 4. No wonder the Rebs lost the Civil War. By the time orders were relayed, those fast-talking, no-nonsense Yankees had already attacked and sacked Atlanta, Antietam, Asheville, Montgomery, Shiloh, Chickahominy, Gettysburg, Vicksburg, and lots of other burgs. The Southerners hadn't gotten through their howdy-doos by the time the Yanks were in the saddle, riding hard and furious, swift as the wind. Colonel, you're waxing poetic again," Mary warns. "Sorry, my dear," Warble replies, ignoring Mary's apparent stutter. "Anyway, always break up vowels into 2 syllables. And since you're in the women folks' camp, it wouldn't hurt to bat your eyelashes and act coquettish in any way possible and every way imaginable. And say y'all as much as possible. You see, it's like this, Miss Mary. Miss Mary? Warble, honey, you're not Abraham and I'm not Sarah. Are you saying we have to pretend we're not married?" No, Warble says, with a dismissive wave of his hand. "Why are you always jumping to conclusions, Mary? Don't you know that all the women in the South are referred to as Miss So-and-so, and all the men are Colonel What's-His-Face? You're Miss Mary Betty Lou Thelma Liz Nieto, and I'll be Colonel Nieto, Colonel N-Cog Nieto, to be precise. Don't tell me you're going to start walking with a cane and cultivating a goatee now." "I may do that, my dear, I may just do that." "Oh, brother." Now, Mary, I told you, just because you will be bearing the appellation Miss and I the nobiliary particle Colonel doesn't mean that you are to pose as my sister or some such. Mary rolls her eyes and lets out an inner sigh, a sigh of the spirit. Mary, yes, Colonel, anything you say, Colonel, she says, her eyes on the distant horizon and her jaws set. Oh, and another thing, Miss Mary. When in the South, never turn down pralines, pecan pie, moon pies, mint juleps, RC cola, hush puppies, grits, jambalaya, lemonade, or iced tea. That would be a dead giveaway that you're not a genuine Southern belle. Chapter 9. After the McGorkles have driven a few miles, Warble turns to Mary and asks, Jeet Jet? What? Mary asks, frowning her incomprehension. Jeet Jet? What in the world are you trying to say, Warble? Speak English. Miss Mary, you've got to get with the lingo. The dialect. Dialectics are the key to our success. Jeet Jet, did you eat yet? Did I eat yet? Warble, if that's what you wanted to know, why didn't you ask that in the first place? And you know as well as I do whether I've eaten yet. You've been with me all day. Oh, yeah. Well, in that case, I guess I do know the answer. You have not, except for a few cherries. And that brings up a supplemental question. Hungry? Am I hungry, you'd like to know, Mary deduces. Yes, that's what I said, Miss Mary. Were you hungry? I could stand to have a bite or two, Mary responds. Now you're getting with the program, Mary. If we play our cards right, we are guaranteed to have success. Mary sighs. You mean guaranteed, I take it, Warble. Why, pray tell, do you keep saying it that way? Miss Mary, Miss Mary, Miss Mary, Warble chides in his best Southern drawl. What am I to do with the likes of you? Why did I pronounce it that way, you ask? I told you, they all say guaranteed away down yonder in the land of cotton. It's like sure or you betcha. The soul bands in Louisiana sing guaranteed by golly wow. They do, huh? Mary asks, not having the foggiest notion what Warble is talking about. You betcha. I mean, guaranteed they do, Miss Mary. Every chance they get. They wouldn't have it any other way. Mary spots a Citizen Page, Warble's favorite fast food chain, in Minocqua, and they pull in for cheeseburgers and fries. Following their repast, the McGorkles drive through the night. Through Illinois and Missouri, Warble lectures Mary on Southern ways. He tells her everything he has learned over the years about the South, knowledge he has gleaned from the movie Gone with the Wind, the TV show Dukes of Hazzard, the song Southern Nights, and a variety of novels and such. Mary sleeps through the monologue, but Warble doesn't notice, partly because she is wearing sunglasses and nods her head every once in a while, which Warble interprets as signals of agreement or comprehension, and partly because he just assumes that Mary would not be able to sleep while listening to such scintillating conversation. Another reason is that Mary snores very softly. When the dawn ascends, Mary awakes and is surprised to see that she and Warble are in Arkansas. She thought that Warble was going to stop at a motel during the night, but he obviously had not. Now that Warble notices Mary is awake, he asks her if she could bear to face a plate of victuals, and if she wouldn't mind driving after they eat so he can catch 40 winks. She could, and she won't mind. Mary soon spots a roadside diner, which, based on the number of cars surrounding it, seems to be quite popular. She is hungry and succeeds in talking Warble into stopping there rather than holding out for a Citizen Page. Lou and Lulu's, Warble reads. Sounds interesting enough, I guess. Remember, Mary, we are Southern through and through. If you don't know what something on the menu is, don't ask about it. We don't want to leave behind the slightest clue for our pursuers. Warble pulls a piece of grass from alongside the U.S.A. Today rack outside the eatery and sticks it in his mouth, rolling it back and forth between his teeth, somewhat reminiscent of a log in an Oregon lumberjack log rolling contest. He makes sure to hold the door open for Mary and, with a sweeping bow, escorts her inside the roadhouse. A plastic sign that is made to look as if it's made of wood reads, Please wait to be seated. Warble makes his best effort to look Southern. He stuffs his thumbs in his pockets and stands nonchalantly with his legs bowed. By and by, a pert young lady appears to seat the McGorkles. Table for two? She asks. Yes, ma'am, Warble drawls. The waitress, who looks like a 7/8 size version of Dolly Parton, without the top heaviness, hands menus to Warble and Mary on seating them, and informs them that she will be back soon to take their orders. After a cursory glance at the menu, Warble whispers, "Mary, would you look at the items on this menu? Everything is chicken fried this, and chicken fried that." "What are you talking about, Warble? The only chicken fried thing I see on the menu is chicken fried steak." "Look a little closer then. There's not only chicken fried steak, but also chicken fried buffalo wings, chicken fried fries, chicken fried ice cream, chicken fried chicken tenders, and chicken fried RC Cola. Don't look now, but I think this may be a trap. They're testing us to see whether we are the Gen U wine article. The traditional Southern dishes are not even on the menu, but I'll order them all anyway. You know they've got them. They just want to see if we know they've got them." Before long, the waitress returns. "Are you ready to order?" "Yes, miss, I believe we are." "All right then. Shall I start with you, sir?" "You betcha," Warble replies, eager to display that he knows a thing or two about the culinary delights of the South. "Miss, I'll have a heaping plate of those good old grits y'all got back there yonder, some hush puppies, a slice of pecan pie, a few pralines, and some jambalaya, a plate of shrimp gumbo, and a large iced tea. Oh, and a glass of Southern comfort." "Well, sir, I reckon we could accommodate you on most of your wishes, but we don't serve alcohol here." "What? Don't serve alcohol? What is this? Are you trying to tell me this is a dry county? No Southern gentleman would even think of sinking his teeth into a generous helping of good old grits and such like without a drop or two of corn squeezins or moonshine or some such to keep it all company." "Well, I wouldn't know about that, sir, but as I said, we don't serve alcohol here. We haven't got a liquor license." "Liquor license? Liquor license, schmicker license. Are you all afeard of the revenuers or something? I won't say nothing. I won't let out a peep. Just give me a taste of that sweet heat." The waitress just stares at Warble, perplexed. In his pseudo-righteous indignation, Warble stands up, simultaneously raises his right forefinger and his voice and proclaims, "This is an outrage. A true son of the South can't get a smidgen of Southern comfort to wet his whistle in this establishment. As a Southern gentleman who can trace his lineage back to Jefferson Davis and Glenn Campbell, I cannot and will not suffer this indignity. We're leaving. Come on, Miss Mary," Warble concludes, standing up and reaching for his wife's hand. Mary, trying to be as inconspicuous as possible, gets up from her seat and heads toward the door with her husband. Just before closing the door behind himself, Warble whirls around and offers a parting shot across the bow to the dumbfounded diners. "The South will rise again." Mary walks wordlessly toward the car. She knows it is futile to argue, senseless to question. That should throw them off our trail for a while, Mary. Doubtless they are applauding me now in that eatery. I have passed the test with flying colors. When they write my biography, that episode is bound to be remembered as the chicken fried diner incident. Now we will enter into Southern society with the greatest of ease. If you say so, Warble. I'm still hungry, though. We're a little behind schedule now, Miss Mary. How about if we just pop into the Piggly Wiggly and pick up a few things to snack on? Whatever, Warble, Mary replies, feeling more than a little cranky. After getting a pecan pie and some iced tea from the Piggly Wiggly, even though Warble hates both pecan pie and tea at any temperature, he wants to prove to any spies who may yet be monitoring their every move just how deep down Southern he truly is. Warble realizes they may have a problem. Chapter 10. Miss Mary, I just thought of something. I thought I heard a strange noise. Hardy har har. Very funny, Warble retorts impatiently. Actually, he wishes he had thought of that line himself. He stores it away for future use. Seriously now, Miss Mary, we still have Wisconsin plates on our little jewel here, he says, patting the dashboard of the PT Cruiser affectionately. We can't go driving around the South with America's Dairyland plastered all over our car's backside. We can't? Heck no. We need some local plates. When we get to Louisiana, we'll remove our plates, hide them under the carpet in the trunk of the car, and borrow some from somebody. Borrow? So you do plan on giving them back? Oh, sure, eventually. Are you going to ask before borrowing these plates? Mary, what do you think I am, insane? Always remember, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. And if you don't get caught, it's even easier. The McGorkles drive through Mississippi without incident. Warble daydreams about the trip made in 1814 down the mighty Mississippi, as made famous by Johnny Horton in his song, The Battle of New Orleans. Also about grade school spelling bees, as made intolerable by Mrs. Buxtebeeren, his sixth-grade teacher, who had the most irritating way of speed spelling the name of the state. Tupelo makes him think of Van Morrison. In Honey, Pascagoula conjures up thoughts of Ray Stevens, streakers and squirrels. In Hattiesburg, of former Green Bay Packers quarterback Brett Favre. Warble is lost in a reverie filled with corncob pipes, island getaways, river rats, rafts, buried treasure, and caves when he is jolted out of his semi-trance by a giant billboard. Welcome to Louisiana. After stopping for supper at Citizen Page and filling up on cheeseburgers and fries, the McGorkles hit the road again. It won't be long, and they'll be in the New Orleans suburb of West Wego, where Warble knows he can hole up a while with his old friend H.R. Brooks. Warble's head is on a swivel. He begins to get impatient, frantic almost, about snagging a Louisiana license plate. A car dealership? Nah, too many glad-handing, fake-smiling phonies always nosing around, looking for a sucker. All of a sudden, Warble spots the perfect place to pull in and make a quick switcheroo. The Slidell police station. Several of the police officers' private vehicles are parked out back. Warble doesn't see anybody around. There aren't even any windows facing the parking lot. Who would patrol the police parking lot? It's the safest place of all to borrow a license plate. As Mary realizes what Warble's intentions are, she objects. Warble, the police station? Can't you find a safer place to pilfer a plate? How about some roadhouse or saloon? At least then you could swap plates with some town drunk or dim-witted truck driver. Mary, watch what you say. Some of those dim-witted truck drivers, as you so ignorantly and rudely refer to them, are the sagest philosophers of our time. Didn't I ever tell you about Dipstick, the trucker I once met? Yes, I remember you telling me something about Dipstick, Warble. Tell me, can you really take a person who goes by that nickname seriously? I don't think it was a nickname, Mary. Anyway, I have respect for that profession, and not just because they all have tire irons. Police, on the other hand, are afraid to fire off their guns, because if they do, they have to fill out reams of paperwork. Not only that, don't you know that all Southern cops are inept buffoons? Didn't you pay attention when we watched Smokey and the Bandit? I hate to say it, Miss Mary, but I'm afraid you really need to improve in your skills of data detection, deduction, extraction, and extrapolation. A police station is far and away the best place to swipe a license plate. As is usually the case, Mary sees that further debate is futile. She wonders why she didn't marry Otto the sausage maker. He was born boring, got fat at 25, and was bald by 30, but at the moment those attributes don't seem so bad to her. There are worse things than being boring. As Warble parks his PT Cruiser between a couple of cars, he notices a pickup parked nearby that has a Confederate flag license plate holder. As he springs out of his car, snatching a screwdriver from underneath the seat as he does, Warble tells Mary to keep a lookout, and if she doesn't see anybody by the time he gets the plate off the car they are parked next to, he'll scramble over to the pickup and grab its license plate holder while he's at it. Mary considers arguing with Warble, but knows that resistance would be hopeless and only prolong the misery. She tries to appear as nonchalant as possible, while gazing in all directions to try to detect any suspicious-looking people. That is to say, any people who are looking at Warble and herself as if they are suspicious. Monitoring the proceedings in her passenger side mirror, Mary can see Warble twisting the screwdriver as fast as he can. The rotations seem interminable. When Warble finally finishes unscrewing the license plate from the police car, he looks up at Mary to see if it's safe to go for the Confederate license plate holder on the pickup. Mary wants to motion to him to get back in the car. She just wants to get away from there, and the sooner the better. Mary hesitates, though, because she hasn't spotted anybody watching them. Warble reads the hesitation correctly and is over at the pickup before Mary can decide whether to gesture him back to the car. It seems an eternity before Mary finally sees Warble crawling along the ground with his screwdriver clamped between his teeth and wearing the holder on his head. He's trying to look military, or at least paramilitary, but in actuality looks more like a horseshoe crab with a hitch in his get-along. Warble opens the door quickly but silently and slides into the seat as if nothing untoward is happening. "Nice job, Moll. I mean Miss Mary," he says. As they pull back onto the road, past the police station and out of town, Warble slaps the dashboard all of a sudden, startling Mary. "Now all we need is a gun rack with a shotgun in it," he cries. "In a PT cruiser?" "Sure, why not?" Mary knows that Warble won't give up his PTC. It's his pride and joy, and won't be able to understand how ridiculous a gun rack would look in one. She objects vociferously to his idea of storing a firearm in their vehicle. "No guns, Warble. No guns. No gun racks. And no guns." Making off with watermelons and borrowing license plates is one thing, but Mary knows that Warble and guns wouldn't mix well at all. Somebody somehow would get hurt, either intentionally or otherwise. Warning bells go off in Warble's mind. He recognizes the tone Mary used and realizes, at some submerged level of consciousness, just how infrequently her objections reach that magnitude of intensity, and intuits that this is a situation in which he would do well to sue for peace. Warble searches his mind for a graceful way out. After all, he doesn't want to appear to be capitulating, for what might that lead to? Chapter 11. Finally, Warble shrugs and says, "I guess a gun and gun rack would look kind of out of place in this little beauty after all. And anyway, Mary." Mary breathes a sigh of relief and says, seemingly nonchalantly, "Yes, I think you're right, dear." Looking out the window and rolling her eyes, she adds, "You have such good intuition about these things." After a dead space in the conversation, followed by a lull and then a pregnant pause, Warble asks as they near Westwego, "Are you ready for your next lesson in Southern speech patterns? Conundrums and anomalies, my dear Miss Mary?" Mary has been daydreaming about her begonias. Warble's inquiry jerks her out of her muse like Bullwinkle being yanked off stage with a shepherd's staff that the seemingly kind-hearted and possibly even somewhat effeminate, based on his voice more than anything else, although that shouldn't be held against him, as it is indubitably a hereditary and not a chosen manner of speaking. Flying squirrel Rocky. Imagine a creature with such a high voice being named Rocky of all things, wields so expertly. "Southern speech patterns? What on earth are you talking about, Warble?" Mary asks a little impatiently. "The idiosyncrasies of the vanquished hordes at the bottom half of the nation's map, Miss Mary. That is the subject of which I speak so eloquently, if I do say so myself, since nobody else will. Credit must be given where credit is due, by hook or by Warble." "Go on then, Mr. Eloquence," Mary responds flatly. "Remember, Miss Mary, that you need to get into the habit of calling me Colonel, lest you slip whilst we're among our genteel compatriots and call me by my given name, or sugar pie honey bunch, or some other such term of endearment which you can barely suppress yourself from, and which is your wont." Mary's jaw starts to drop, but she catches it in mid-fall, clamps her mouth shut, and sighs heavily. "I want to suppress you," she mumbles under her breath, and then turns her head toward Warble and adds sarcastically, "Colonel." Warble glances over at his wife, a little startled at the vitriol in her voice. All he had heard her say was, "Colonel." He furrows his brow, shakes his head, and proceeds with his supposedly edifying ramblings. "Don't ever say press or push while we're in the South, Mary. Instead say mash. Anytime you would normally say the former, replace it with the latter. For example, if we're in an elevator, you might ask me, 'Colonel, will you ask that man to mash 13? To which I'll reply, 'Certainly, Miss Mary.' 'My good old boy, will you police mash 13? To which request he will indubitably wordlessly respond by pressing the corresponding button. "You've got to be kidding me, Warble." Ah, Warble scolds, waving his index finger in the air. "Remember, Miss Mary, it's Colonel." "Colonel Warble, then," Mary responds, glaring. Warble is getting exasperated. He emphasizes every other word of his response with a slap of the dashboard. "Colonel Nieto, Mary, not Colonel Warble." "Fine, have it your way, Colonel Nieto. At any rate, this mash stuff seems kind of silly to me. If they say mash for press and push, then instead of watching MASH on TV, they watch Push. And instead of Meet the Press, They watch Meet the Mash. Do they call pushers mashers and mashers pushers? Miss Mary, I'm shocked. Those aren't proper subjects for a Southern belle like you to be discussing. Besides, Southerners are bilingual. They understand Yankee as well as Southern speech. Verily, they can watch Yankee TV shows without being in the least mentally overtaxed. They just prefer not to speak Yankee, at least not to each other. Now to proceed with my most marvelous explanation. Since the word mash is used as a replacement for press and push, they don't call mashed potatoes mashed potatoes. On the other hand, they don't call them pushed potatoes either, because that would make it sound as if the grocer had used hard sell tactics on them, which would be considered uncouth in the suave, debonair, and genteel South. Then what do they call them? Mary asked, curious in spite of herself. Smashed potatoes. Now that's silly. Silly? In what way is it silly, Miss Mary? They are smashed, aren't they? Who? The taters, the spuds. I suppose. Honestly, Miss Mary, sometimes I wonder why I bother. Me, so do I. What? Never mind. Right, Warble responds, raising his eyebrows. He sometimes wonders if Mary is losing it. Anyway, one more thing. What do you think of when you hear the word palate? Palate? It depends on whether I'm hungry or not.